where do you start? So after you've come up with a mock-up, you want to come up with a mock-up early on, which would simulate the weight and size of your sensor and its package. And so that you could then use that actual device or a mock-up piece that would simulate at least the weight and the size. And with that, you're going to know from your skin requirements and your device requirements, you'll get some clue on some of the families of adhesives that you'll want to try to test and learn about early on. And you'll also see on this mock-up that the tape is a bit exaggerated, but it's wider than the device, because often on these devices, if you put the tape right under the device, it's going to lift up there. There's no flexibility. So they often call this a skirt or sometimes, so that's a little bit exaggerated, but that is a common part of the feature of your mock-up. So you have your device, you have your sticky PSA tape, but then you have some way you've got to bond that tape to your device. So there's either another adhesive, in certain configurations, there'll be a couple layers, there'll be some heat bonding. There's different ways to make this tie layer. Very often on a prototype like this though, what you would do is, again, use another type of tape as a tie layer. So as you come up with your prototype design that will help you with adhesive screening, you find the right tapes for evaluation, and then you do your tests on either human skin or other, as I said, low energy substrates that would simulate skin, at least the bondability issue you run in with wetting of the adhesive on the skin. Then you go through and you say, well, I want this to last a certain amount of time. You evaluate the adhesive at different time periods, or you wait till it fails. And at that point, with your criteria you've already developed, you're going to rank your adhesives and what you've learned. And especially you're going to look at the failure mode. Did you have clean transfer of the tape off the skin when you wanted it to come off, or did you have residue left behind? And these would be part of understanding failure mode. Failure mode is it's one of the key elements of understanding adhesive development is you actually create failure modes on purpose in development. So for example, at a certain time period, even if the device hasn't come off, you're going to need to see what happens to it, because it's time to come off, let's say. So this is part of your challenge, and one of your challenges in early on screening adhesives. And you'll go through also additional development steps to come up with this PSA tape and liner is a very oversimplified view of what you might end up with for adhering to your mock-up device. Some of them have little rings of adhesive. Like I say, you might have perforated layers, multi-layers foam, non-woven materials. There's a whole variety of configurations, but this is just a simple one to how to screen for your adhesive. So I'm going to then move on. If there are any questions.
I guess one question. So,
yeah.
For example, there are mechanical testing labs that will do like UL certification. They'll do drop tests. Are there equivalent standards for different categories of these wearable devices that are attached with adhesive?
There are some certain standards that are for this, and they're similar to regular stripes, but there are some other standards that are really.
Are there labs that provide specialized testing, or
yeah, there are labs that do that as well. Yes.
Okay.
But again, it's really important. No matter what lab you may use, I feel it's really important for whoever is developing this to this is the most fundamental thing to do early on, so that you can help that lab. You still end up customizing tests for your product in the end. So this is something I like to encourage people to do, but there are some labs that do this. There are some of the companies will help you, but what happens in the development of these products is that you actually really need to know how you're going to approach the manufacturing pretty early on, because that makes a difference on what type of a vendor you want to work with. Like, so there's a whole range of people out there that some would love to get involved and make your whole product, and some will send you to people to work with. And there's just a range of different ways that you can develop your product. And so it's important to focus on really early on that manufacturing step, which I had in the checklist, really critical.
Cool, thank you.
Yep. So yeah. Any other questions on this?